My brother laughed in my face in the middle of our father's lawyer's office, and my stepmother just sat there with this small, satisfied smile like she'd already won. I remember thinking, they actually believe this is over. For most of my life, I had been the daughter who didn't quite fit. My mother died when I was 9, ovarian cancer, fast and brutal. And within 2 years, my father had remarried. My stepmother came with her own son, 8 years older than me, already in university, already charming everyone who met him. My father adored him, called him sharp, called him driven. At family dinners, he would listen to my stepbrother talk for 45 minutes straight about his investment ideas or his hockey league, and nod along with this expression I can only describe as pride. He looked at me differently, not with cruelty exactly, more like mild confusion, the way you'd look at an appliance you didn't remember purchasing. I grew up in a suburb of Edmonton. The house was large, the neighborhood was quiet, and on the surface we were a perfectly normal blended family. But the thing about being the invisible child is that you notice everything. You notice who gets asked about their day and who doesn't. You notice whose school events your father attends and whose he forgets. You notice when your name is left off the family Christmas card, not maliciously, just accidentally, which almost feels worse. I started working at 16. Not because I had to, my father paid for everything, but because I needed something that was mine. I worked weekends at a dog grooming salon in our neighborhood, and I was good at it, better than good. The owner, a woman in her late 50s named Ruth, told me I had the patience of a saint and the hands of a surgeon. I loved that job, I loved the animals, I loved that when I did something well there, it had nothing to do with my last name. By 22, I had my Red Seal certification in dog grooming, and a small but loyal client base I had built entirely by myself. By 25, I had co-signed a commercial lease on a space in the west end of the city and opened my own shop. I called it North Paw. Clean, simple, easy to remember. I funded it myself, every dollar. I had saved yearly for 3 years, lived with a roommate in a basement suite, drove a 2009 Civic, and brought my lunch to work every single day. My father knew about the shop. He nodded when I told him. He said, "Well, that's a niche market," and then asked my stepbrother if he'd seen the Oilers game the night before. Northpaw did well. Within 18 months, I had hired 2 full-time groomers, added a small retail section for premium dog food and accessories, and had a waitlist 3 weeks long. I was proud. I was genuinely, bone-deep proud of what I had built. And then my father had a stroke. He survived it. He was 67, and it wasn't catastrophic. Partial right-side weakness, some speech difficulties that gradually improved with therapy. But it scared him. It scared all of us. And when he came home from the hospital, something shifted. He became quieter, more reflective. He started talking about his estate. What came out of those conversations blindsided me completely. His plan, as laid out by his estate lawyer over several meetings I was not invited to, was to divide his assets, his investment portfolio, his RRSP, his principal residence, primarily between my stepmother and my stepbrother. I would receive a lump sum, $100,000, and Northpaw and all its associated assets, as though my own business was a gift he was giving me. I found out from his accountant, who called me by mistake thinking I already knew. I sat in my car in the parking lot outside my shop for 20 minutes before I could go back inside. I didn't confront my father right away. I needed to understand what I was dealing with first. I called a lawyer, a woman who specialized in estate disputes, and I explained the situation. She asked me to gather documents. I spent the next several weeks doing exactly that. What I discovered was this. When my mother died, she had left behind a modest life insurance policy and a small investment account. The total was just under $200,000. In her will, she had designated that money specifically for me, to be held in trust until I turned 18. My father had been the trustee. The money had been transferred into my father's general investment account when I was 11 years old. There was no record of it being held separately, no record of it being used for my benefit. When I turned 18, nothing had been said. My mother's money had simply been absorbed. I didn't say anything to my father or stepmother yet. I kept showing up to Sunday dinners. I kept nodding when my stepbrother talked about his new condo renovation, or his portfolio, or the skiing trip he and his wife were planning in Whistler. I kept my face completely neutral while something cold and determined was settling into my chest. The meeting happened on a Tuesday in February. One of those flat, gray Edmonton days when the sky and the ground are almost the same color. My father's lawyer had an office downtown, on the 14th floor of a building on Jasper Avenue. I took the elevator up and sat in the waiting room, and my stepbrother was already there, standing near the window with his arms crossed, in a jacket that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. He looked at me and said, "You actually came alone?" I said, "I did." He laughed, not loudly, just a small dismissive exhale through his nose. "You know this is a legal meeting, right? You should have brought someone." My stepmother was sitting in one of the chairs by the reception desk. She didn't say anything. She just looked down at her phone with that small smile. I sat down across from them and waited. The lawyer's name was Mr. Ashworth. He was a man in his late 60s, silver-haired. With reading glasses he kept removing and replacing. He went through my father's estate plan in careful, measured language. He explained the division of assets. He used phrases like "in recognition of the blended family structure" and "to ensure long-term stability." At one point he glanced at me over his glasses and said, "Your father has also ensured that Northpaw is formally transferred to you, which represents a significant asset." I said, "Mr. Ashworth, I'd like to raise something before we go any further." He stopped. My stepbrother uncrossed his arms. I placed a folder on the table. Inside were printed copies of my mother's will, her life insurance payout records, the bank statements showing the transfer to my father's account, and a legal opinion from my own lawyer outlining what the misappropriation of a trust fund constitutes under Alberta's Trustee Act. When my mother died, I said, "She left me $192,000 in a designated trust." I turned 18 in 2013. That money was never transferred to me, never accounted for, and never mentioned. According to my legal counsel, the trustee, my father, was in breach of his fiduciary duty. That money, with compound interest calculated from the date I was supposed to receive it, represents approximately $340,000 today. The room was very quiet. Mr. Ashworth picked up one of the documents. He read, for a long moment. Then he set it down and removed his glasses entirely, which felt significant somehow. My stepbrother said, "This is ridiculous. You can't just walk in here and—" "I'm not walking in here with nothing," I said. "I'm walking in here with documentation." My stepmother had stopped looking at her phone. Mr. Ashworth said quietly that he would need to speak with my father directly before proceeding. He said the estate plan as currently structured might need to be reviewed in light of this new information. He used the word material several times. He asked me if my legal counsel was prepared to proceed formally if necessary. I said yes. My stepbrother stood up. He said I was being vindictive. He said I was trying to tear the family apart. He said my mother would be ashamed of me. That one was meant to hit hard. I knew it the moment he said it, and I want to be honest, it did land. I felt it. There was a flash of something painful in my chest, but it passed quickly, because I had thought about my mother a great deal over the preceding months. And what I kept coming back to was this. She had been precise enough, careful enough, deliberate enough to set up a trust specifically for me. She had known my father. She had tried to protect me, in the way you protect someone when you suspect you won't always be there to do it yourself. Using her money to challenge the violation of her wishes wasn't betraying her. It was the opposite. I looked at my stepbrother and I said, "She set up that trust herself. What's happening here is exactly what she was trying to prevent." He didn't have an answer for that. He sat back down. My father was brought in by phone. He hadn't been well enough to attend in person. Mr. Ashworth explained the situation to him. My father was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded smaller than I remembered. He asked if the documents were accurate. Mr. Ashworth said they appeared to be. My father said he would need to think. What happened over the next 6 weeks was handled through lawyers on both sides. I want to be clear about something. I did not want to destroy my father. I did not want a public legal battle. I did not want to go to court. I wanted what my mother had left for me, and I wanted the estate plan revised to reflect something closer to fairness. We reached a settlement. The terms included the $340,000, structured as an adjusted inheritance from the estate rather than a lawsuit payout. My lawyer negotiated that specifically, for tax reasons. The estate plan was revised. I won't share the exact division, but I will say that the phrase, "in recognition of the blended family structure," did not appear in the final version. My stepmother stopped inviting me to Sunday dinners after that. I won't pretend it didn't sting a little, because I'm human, and some part of me still remembered being 12 years old and wanting to belong to that family. But mostly I felt relieved. relieved to stop sitting at a table where I had to perform ease I didn't feel. My stepbrother sent me a text message 3 months after the settlement. It said, "You got what you wanted. I hope it was worth it." I didn't respond. Here's what I want to say, and I want to say it plainly. I did not do any of this out of anger. I had spent years being angry, quietly, privately, in the way you learn to be angry when no one is paying enough attention to notice, and it had not helped me at all. What changed everything was deciding to pay attention to the details. My mother paid attention to the details. She wrote things down, she filed the right paperwork, she made sure there was a record. I learned that from her even though I didn't know I was learning it at the time. Northpaw now has 2 locations. The second one opened in St. Albert 8 months ago, and it's already profitable. Sucks employees. I have a small office in the back of the original shop where I do the bookkeeping on Tuesday mornings, with a cup of coffee and the radio on low. I have a golden retriever named Penny who sleeps under my desk and occasionally judges me. The $100,000 my father originally planned to give me is sitting in a TFSA. I haven't touched it, I'm not sure I ever will. It's not that I'm sentimental about it, it's more that I don't need it. I built everything I have without it, and I think there's something clarifying about that, about knowing, with total certainty, what you made yourself. My mother's money is also invested in something that will matter later. I haven't decided exactly what yet. But I think about her a lot when I'm in the shop, especially on the quiet mornings before the first appointments arrive. When it's just me and Penny and the smell of dog shampoo and the particular gray-gold light that comes through the north-facing windows in January. I think she would have liked it here. She had always wanted a dog, but my father was allergic. She would have loved Penny. There is one more thing I want to say because I think it matters. On the day of that meeting, when I walked into Mr. Ashworth's office, I was terrified. I did not feel like someone who had a plan. I felt like someone who was about to do something irreversible and might be making a catastrophic mistake. My hands were completely steady, and my heart was going about twice its normal speed, and I remember thinking, just get through the next 10 minutes. I got through them, and then the 10 minutes after that. That is, I think, all any of it ever requires.